Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Sharia Quet with CWLI, and thank you for joining us. We're going to be hearing from Jennifer Wisdom as she discusses working upstream, affecting change at any level. Today, Jennifer's planned a interactive presentation, so in just a little while, you are going to be paired off into breakout rooms and then come back together so we can have a robust conversation. So be prepared to share and turn on your cameras, your videos, so we can see you. And now, if you have any questions during the presentation, just feel free to message me in the chat box. I'll just be monitoring that closely, or you can save your questions for the end. We will have Q&A. But without further ado, I will pass it over to Martha. She serves on our Programs Advisory Board, so she is going to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Sharia. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's CWLI leadership presentation. I'm very pleased to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Jennifer Wisdom. Jennifer is a psychologist, public health researcher, consultant, author, and publisher who I got to know through our service on the Society for Psychologists in Leadership Board of Directors. She's also the most change-focused person I've ever met. As a consultant, she helps clients in healthcare, higher education, and nonprofits change their organizations to be more efficient and effective, while also helping to make the organizations better places to work. Her Millennials Guides, a book series, is full of practical and empowering suggestions to help young people achieve their goals and make the world a better place. You can also catch her advice to millennials and those working with millennials on her Millennial Wisdom podcasts. We're honored to have Dr. Jennifer Wisdom here today to talk about how you can make positive change wherever you are. Please welcome her.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here today and excited to share good stuff with you about how to make change. So I understand that that everyone's not exactly perfectly happy with everything in their workplace. Is that true? Is that true? I've heard that. It's a rumor, but I've heard that. So today we're going to talk about three basic things. How can organizations change? What does it take to affect change or effect change? We'll talk about that. And then how do you get started? So piece of cake. By the time you leave today, you're going to have a lot more information about how to make change, and which is perfect for leaders like yourselves who have power and control within organizations, and yet also don't have power and control within organizations sometimes. You can't make everything happen immediately. And then I will talk about my framework for making change so we can get started there. Martha gave a very kind introduction. I appreciate that. And I always love working with Martha and appreciate this opportunity to talk with you today. This is a little bit about me. And thanks to Martha's mentorship and leadership, I'm now the president-elect for our society. So very excited about that as well. So quick question for the group. In the organization where you work, and we're talking about whatever organization that is, where you volunteer, where you worship, where you study, just pick one. Is there anything that you think would make it better? Go ahead and type in the chat. Whoops. Somehow I put subtitles in there. Automated clerical work, big one. Communication, yep. More employees, just more bodies sometimes is what it needs. Awesome. Yep, stream, yep. I love it. I love it. Great. So this is good. So some of you may be seeing what others are saying. Let me have an audio issue here. Stop sharing. I'm going to reshare. Hopefully that will make a difference. All right. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing things that your colleagues are typing in and thinking, oh, my organization might benefit from that too. So that's good. Just want to get you thinking about the kinds of things that would make a difference in your organization. So the first section is about how can organizations change? And there's three kind of general areas where organizations can change. And interesting for what you put in the chat, think about which one of these categories your change falls into. And it's possible it falls into more than one category. So one is culture. The second is technology and infrastructure. And the third is processes. So let's talk about each of those one by one. So here's some examples of cultural change. So changing your organization to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a big one that a lot of organizations are doing now. Improving communication, some people talked about that. Clarifying or updating the organization's values and mission. And I'm sure you can already see how some of these are working together. Changing your culture from competitive to collaborative. These are all ways that are changing the culture. Now, they're not changing the product or the service necessarily, but there's likely to be some impact on those products or services when you do these kinds of culture changes. The next group is technology and innovation change. And some of you mentioned these things where you can change the raw materials used. You can upgrade billing software, for example. You can launch a new product or expand services into a different area. Expand your service offering. So there's lots of different ways that you can use technology or innovation that make change. And again, these can be linked as well. And then some process examples, which some of you mentioned, streamlining some processes. You can increase efficiency. You can reduce waste as far as putting one thing. I worked in a place once where my colleague Bob would have to input data into a spreadsheet and then hand it off to someone else who would then input the spreadsheet information into another system. And then the finance department would take that information and put it back in another spreadsheet. So there's a lot of waste that happens sometimes in organizations, and you might be able to reduce that. So you can increase your effectiveness, or you can clarify what the expectations are or the steps. Sometimes these can be in collaboration with culture change or technology change. So those are kind of three main areas where organizations can make change. So now let's talk, now that we know what can change in an organization, what does it take to affect change? And I went back and forth on using the affect or the effect. So the title is to affect change, essentially to have an impact on change. But there's also the other word of effect that starts with an E that is create change, to basically make the change that's happening. So you can affect change in that whatever change is happening, you can amplify it. You can also create change yourself. So we'll talk about both of those here. These techniques will work for both of those efforts. So I'm a researcher in many ways, and Martha mentioned that as well. So what does research say it takes for an organization to change? If you go to the literature, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about this in greater detail because I love nerding out on this stuff, the change literature in scientific research says that these are all the things that it takes for an organization to change. You have leadership, and they create this culture of change, which in the organization, which means that people are open to changing. The leader presents a clear vision for what's going to happen. There's resources put in, the stakeholders all buy in. You have precise outcome measures, so you'll know how you've changed. You have timelines, there's clear roles and responsibilities, and there's a bunch of meetings. This is what often happens when organizations are making change from the top down, or from the board, from the senior people down to the junior people. This is the process that it takes. If you are in that role in your organization, you may want to consider these things. It's always good to have a clear vision. It's always good to have timelines and roles and responsibilities and outcome measures, because you want to know if it worked, right? You're not going to know if it worked if you don't have precise outcome measures. Sometimes, however, we're not in those roles with an organization, and we're not the ones that are in charge. And of course, even if we are in charge, we can't control everything. So what does it take for you to change an organization? So I describe this in 3 easy steps. The easy is, of course, a little sly there because they're not actually easy, but 3 steps, 3 simple steps. The steps themselves are simple, but actually making them happen is a little more challenging. That said, you are leaders, and I know you can do this. So these are helpful whether you're the big boss at the top of the organization, whether you are at a brand new organization and a junior person. These are things you can do. All right. I wanted to put a reminder here, and always take any opportunity to reference Star Wars. Make sure that you use your power for good. Sometimes people use their power to do things that are not so good. I trust that you will use your power for good. And that was our Star Wars interlude. Okay, so first step, the idea. Here, what needs to be changed? What do you think should be different in your organization? And some people, your ideas in here around streamlining communication or automated clerical work or cross-training, these are great ideas for how to change it. How can you get more specific? 2 extra employees, that's pretty specific. I like that, very specific. Others of these, what would it look like for those things to change? Try to dig into that idea of what needs to be changed. So then once you've done that, kind of think about how it can be changed. Has it been tried before? If so, what happened? And this will involve talking with people. But if you don't have that experience yourself, if it's been tried before, what happened? I used to work in a place where every idea I had, people, excuse me, people would come back and say, oh yeah, we tried that 6 years ago, it didn't work. Oh yeah, we already tried that, it didn't work. And that was really frustrating for me as someone who wanted to make change. There are ways through that, but trying to find out what the history is and what happened before is helpful. Sometimes there's a reason things haven't been tried before, because there's one person who shuts it down. One of my clients asked me to help streamline their services, and it was a behavioral health agency, pretty large behavioral health agency, asked me to help them streamline their services. And after doing an initial assessment, I came back and said, I think what would be really helpful would be to provide some training for your managers, because they're getting promoted into management positions. They don't know how to manage. They're having challenges. I think training them is going to make a big difference. And they said, nope, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. If we train them, they'll just leave. And I thought, okay. So then I came back 6 months later into the project, said the same thing. Maybe you should train your managers. And they said, if we train them, they'll just leave. And I said, what you're stuck with then is that you're not training them and they're staying. And then 6 months later, they said, we wanted to engage you with another project. We'd like some management training. Is that something you could do? So it's fun. Those things happen. But that one person was in the way of making this change happen. But over time, it worked out. So the next question to ask yourself is, what would it take for things to change? And then I always love a mantra. Mantras are always helpful. One of my favorite mantras when I'm working with employees is, I want you to be happy and successful. If you can't be happy and successful here, I get it. I will help you be happy and successful somewhere else. That is a mantra. That's something that I repeat all the time. And now my staff know that if I say, I want you to be happy, they're like, yes, and successful, thank you. They know how to finish it. What's your mantra? Your mantra could be something like, everyone is trained and knows where to go when they have a question. Or it can be, we are all on the same team. If one of your challenges is more collaboration across departments. It could be, we have people who do exactly what needs to be done. So kind of think about what that is, because that'll come in handy in step 2. Step 2, find your collaborators. So basically you're going to be sharing your idea. And this doesn't mean that you're going around trying to force everything to go to everybody you talk to and say, we need 2 more people here. Don't you think? We need to go to the boss and demand 2 more people, right? That's probably not going to be effective. But what you can do is start talking about, hey, I was wondering about cross-training and job shadowing. Has that happened here before? Have you done that? Does that sound like a good idea to you? And get some feedback. Did they like it? Did they not like it? Oh yeah, we could do that, but who would organize it? And that sounds really complicated. Aha. So now one barrier to making that happen is that it's complicated, or at least some people think it's complicated. So then you can go back to your idea, step 1, and think about, how can I make this less complicated? Who likes the idea? Who doesn't like the idea? What did they think it would take? It would take a new executive director for that to happen. The current leader is never going to go for that. Okay, that's good information to have. So then when you find these collaborators, how do you start to nudge those things into happening? And this is why I have an illustration of the wave here, because I think of it as, you're saying, we need cross-training, and point, 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 point. We need cross-training, point, point, point. Whatever your mantra is that you're saying, and you're doing this over and over and over, and you keep having the conversations and you keep nudging and you keep talking about how much it'll help. And maybe you can start it just a little bit yourself, and maybe you can help someone else who's interested in it, and you keep starting the wave, and eventually you're going to have the wave going. That's how you know you're successful, when the rest of them are raising their hands and it comes around to you and you think, oh yeah, right, cross training. Absolutely, let's keep going. So you start nudge those things into happening and figure out who else you need to talk with. It's going to start happening. It's going to move. It really will. And then finally, the third step, if you've ever tried to start the wave, you know how frustrating that can be, where sometimes it takes a while. Keep going. Keep talking to others. Keep building collaborators. Keep inspiring people with your big idea. So maybe there's a situation where you think, well, gosh, this person would really benefit from cross training. I'm going to talk to them. Maybe I can just spend a little bit of time with them and then bring up, maybe, wow, what if we all had cross training? Just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep pushing, keep doing the wave. Be respectful, be diplomatic, and keep going. You may encounter some challenges. I say a little tongue in cheek. So some of the challenges you might encounter are that sometimes people don't want to change. And by sometimes, I mean many times. People are set in their ways, or people have other things they want to be doing, or people just don't want to have to deal with something new. That happens. That's okay. Another challenge you might come across is that sometimes people are jerks. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has had an experience of working with or for a jerk. Sometimes people are just jerks. It happens. Organizational change can be complex. If you want to make change in your organization, starting with overhauling your financial software is probably going to be an enormous lift that's going to take multiple years. Whereas if what you want to do is have a little bit of cross training or have a little bit of this, that is going to be a lot more simple. So kind of thinking about the scope of it, and the larger the scope, the more moving parts, the more complex it is. And then finally, it's easy to get discouraged. And I remind you of the wave here. This takes a lot. Somebody has to be really persistent in trying to make that wave happen. So what can you do? One is you can help people see how changing is better than not changing. And if you're in a leadership position, you have a little bit of power, sometimes you can help maneuver the incentives to incentivize changing and disincentivize not changing. And these are kind of more advanced skills, but just sharing them out there, sharing them with you, putting them out there so that you can help maneuver the situation to help people see how change is better than not changing. The next part is to play the long game. Now, some of you may plan to be at your organization for only a few years and then move on. Okay. Others of you are planning to be lifers and want to make sure that you really play the very long game with this organization. Either way, think about what you can do in the time that you have, and know that whatever you're doing, you're planting seeds for people who come after you to pick up the ball and run with it, to keep the wave going, to expand the circle of the wave, to keep it going. But staying focused on the long game and helping make those changes incrementally can be really helpful toward addressing some of those challenges. And of course, be your lovely positive self. It's so easy to get discouraged, but when you keep focusing on what the potential of the organization is, how much it could do to help its clients, how much more it can support its employees, and just continue to be lovely and positive as you already are. Continue to just insist on being supportive of the organization and its goals. Those are things you can do that'll be helpful. And then finally, pace yourself. This is related to the one step at a time in the long game. Pace yourself, stay motivated, keep going. You may need to take a break. That's okay. You may need to change your idea. That's okay. Just keep moving. Keep thinking about how you can support the mission of the organization, how you can support the staff in the organization, the workers, the clients or patients or students or whoever your constituents are. You can keep those things moving forward. This is one of my favorite images here because we think success looks like that straight line, but it really looks like the line on the right. It really does. And just to remind you that if you're aiming for the one on the left, you're going to be disappointed and frustrated. But if you keep in mind, it really looks like the one on the right, you're going to have a bit better of time and you'll be more patient with yourself and with others. And having worked on a lot of change projects as an external consultant, as an internal consultant, as an internal employee, it really looks like the stuff on the right for sure. And just keep being persistent. Know that you are making change, even if you can't see it. It's happening. Okay, so now you have all this information. How do you get started? How do you take your idea and then start building collaborations and then make it happen? Well, this is where we're going to break out into small group discussion. So I have 2 questions for you, and we have about 10 minutes, and there's 2 or 3 people of you in a group. So manage your time accordingly. You'll have a couple of minutes, and Shariah put the questions in the chat. What is one change you'd love to see in your organization? And what is one thing you can do to move it forward? Welcome back. Excited to hear what you'd like to talk about, what you talked about in your groups. So let's go ahead and get started. I think everybody's back. So who would like to share something that you talked about? What's one change you'd love to see and one thing you can do to move that forward?
I have kind of a quirky one, but I wanted to put in a better AP system because we do 600 invoices a week and we touch them probably 8 times start to finish, which is terrible. Yeah, it's bad. So every time I see somebody from senior management that's around on Thursday check day, I say, hey, can you help us? And within 10 minutes, they say, this is terrible. So I'm subtly trying to pull in people that say, when that project gets to their desk, they say, oh yes, we need to do this.
Nice. Nice. So what can you do next? How can you up your game and take it to the next step?
Well, we're researching softwares to suggest to them is our next piece.
Nice, nice. And if you're looking for a mantra, I might suggest one that some other Gen Xers might recognize, which is, we have the technology.
Yes.
This was from the
We can
$6
do
million
this better.
man, $6 million man in the 70s, I think. But we have the technology is sometimes helpful to help people bring us up. At one organization about 3 years ago, everybody got started saying, I want to bring us at least up to the 1990s with our technology here. So sometimes making those kinds of jokes can be helpful as you move things forward. Well, good luck.
Well, I think that will land well because we just left our green screens 2 years ago. So we're working on it.
There you go. Awesome. Well, great job, Heather. I'm sure that's going to work out great. Who else? What else would you like to change and what can you do? This is the interactive part.
Well, I know I was saying in our group that one thing, we've grown really fast. And so we've like more than tripled our staff in the last about a year. And as a development director, I don't always know what other people are doing. So it's hard for me to raise money for programs I don't know about. We are in a process of like changing things to be more efficient and all that. But one thing I've done for that specifically is trying to meet and communicate regularly with our program manager. That we have consistent back and forth. And she knows what I'm doing and I know what she's doing. Across the board, I mean, we're working on streamlining communications and procedures. It's just growing pains and it's all going really well, but it's challenging, but also helpful to just have that line of communication with one person to start.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. It's something I've done in case it's helpful is in a role like yours where it's important for you to know what's going on and yet people aren't always telling you what's going on. I've done what I called a road show, which is I would go out to each group. I'd contact make sure, I have the support from the person above me, but then I would talk to each of the groups and say, hey, I'd like to come to one of your staff meetings and just chat with everybody for about 20 minutes, let them know what we do here in development and find out a little bit more about what you do. And if it's in person, you can always like bring a pizza or something, but by Zoom, you can just, virtual coffee or whatever. But that's a nice way to get to know people. You can always, you can only do it like once every couple of years, but I learned so much when I do that. I get to know people. I find out more about, they had no idea what I do. And so we find so many different ways to work together. So just as an idea, in case it's helpful.
No, I love that.
Great. Who else? Nobody else has anything they want to change in their organization?
I can jump in. I'm
Okay.
also a director of development. I'm at Siskin Children's Institute,
Nice.
and I'm still fairly new. It's been less than a year, so I come in with a lot of ideas of what I have done in other roles that were successful in trying to get people on board. And one of the things that I want to see change is at my last organization, our lay leadership, our committees and boards were hyperactive, sometimes too active in the decision making. And so I'm trying to help change the mindset of our leadership, that they have a voice and a really loud voice, that I want them to be my partner and my equal and counterpart in some of these decisions, and getting them also excited and on board with the ideas that I'm bringing from my other organization. And I think what you were saying with the wave of just keep going, and either they're going to get excited and get on board, or they're going to say, you know what, I actually think I should be on a different committee, and that's okay too. I know what I'm asking is in everybody's interest, but just really keep driving forward, knowing that this will be successful and the people who are excited about it are in the right place, and then working with those who say, this isn't for me, to find them the right role because they're passionate about the organization, just maybe not about fundraising.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So what's your next step to bring them into the conversation more?
I've increased the meeting regularity, I guess to say. They had been meeting once a quarter, which decisions, if anyone's involved in a nonprofit, happen every hour, every day, every week. And so meeting once a quarter just wasn't enough to have them actively participating in some of those bigger decisions. We canceled an event because of COVID without having a committee meeting. To me, that was crazy, but we didn't have a meeting scheduled. So we're now meeting monthly. And I think that that's going to both get the people who are excited more excited, and get the people who aren't interested in fundraising to say, I actually want to be on a different committee. So hopefully that works.
That's good. That's good. That's a good nudge that sometimes nudges can become shoves, but that's okay. It makes change. It makes things move. That's good. One other thing that I've seen have really outsized results for how simple the effort is to tell people how much you appreciate them and value their opinion, or I need your opinion. Like, I really need to hear from your group. Your group is doing such important things, and that sort of thing. Again, it seems small, but many times that'll help people change their perspective from, this is a meeting where I don't even know why I'm here, to, oh, she really wants to hear what I have to say. Wow, it's important. Okay. So sometimes that can change that perspective. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Who else? We'll do 2 or 3 more. So if you're on the fence about jumping in, now's a good time. I will also add, in line with what I just said, we all really appreciate your suggestions, because whatever you're struggling with at your organization is most likely other people are struggling with that same thing as well. And I'm certainly learning from listening to you. So it's not just about you. You're helping everyone by sharing what you're thinking about.
So I don't know if somebody else was about to jump in, but it's a little bit of cheating because I'm partway on the way to making the change that I wanted, and that's adding staff. And it's something, I guess the way that it came about was in the last big board meeting, we were able to have one in person in July. I don't know if we'll have another one in person anytime soon, but there was a lot of talk about things that they wanted staff to do, and our staff are just maxed out already as it is. And a lot of things that they couldn't have seen, and of course it was a different board a few years ago. I was telling Leanna, who we were in the partner together, social media is something that they would have said 5 or 10 years ago, are you kidding, we're going to pay somebody to do that? And now they were asking for what they would like to see in social media, that we've cobbled together additional help through student interns. Initially, well, they were the ones who knew what it was and how to do it. And so when they started talking about it again, this board meeting, I suggested, how about ask those two directors to create a new position and bring it next summer as to the budget, when we do the budget, to see if we can get the one or both of those positions approved next year when we do the budget. And they agreed to ask those two directors to work on creating the new positions.
Nice. I like it. And this is, Martha brings up such a beautiful example. She is clearly playing the long game, right? Let's start
Yeah.
talking about it this summer, and then we'll have the next step next summer. That is a long game. She's invested in this and taking the incremental steps to make it happen. I love it. Great example, Martha.
And we'll see what happens next summer.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Step by step, step by step. Who else?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So I work for Erlanger, and mine is more of a cultural change. There's kind of a saying at Erlanger that it's the Erlanger way, and that's not a good way. But it's, you know, when something goes wrong or takes forever to get through the pipeline, someone will say, well, that's just, you know, that's the way it is at Erlanger. And so as an executive team, we've tried hard to kind of stop that at the top and then make sure that we, you know, start to filter that down, that, you know, this doesn't have to be the Erlanger way. There's certainly other ways we can do it. And just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it has to continue. So that has been a big culture shift for us that is, you know, I would say enterprise-wide. And it will take time, but it's going to start with little small bites. And again, probably having to start at the top with our CEO and then trickle down from there. But it's been interesting to watch, and we're working on it. And there's lots of committees, and we're taking different pieces of, you know, what do we want to change about that? I mean, what, you know, instead of it being the Erlanger way, how can we change that? And we've taken some very specific things to work on, and develop committees around those, and have started to try to make those changes in a positive way.
Nice. I like it. And how many of you have organizations where people say, oh yeah, that's just how it goes here? That sense of like almost learned helplessness. Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that a lot as well. And it's clever, the Erlanger way. I wonder, Julie, about what if you just change the Erlanger way to mean something totally different? What if the Erlanger way became, the way we do things here is we put our patients first.
Right.
Or we are innovative, and I don't know, the Erlanger way is innovation and discovery, or whatever, right? Kind of coming up with a new frame. So you could, whenever anyone says, oh yeah, that's the Erlanger way, that's just how it happens, you can say, the Erlanger way is innovation and discovery. That's what we do. What can we do to solve this problem using the new Erlanger way?
I like that.
Yeah, it's been several groups have used, I mean, a lot of different people have used basically rebranding or reframing language to serve them in different ways. So why not? Words only mean what we decide collectively they mean. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, good. That's so exciting. Big culture change.
Thank you.
Fun. Yeah, and kind of kicking people out of that stasis and that helplessness is, that's one of my favorite parts of consulting, is when I go in and people are just so down, and the favorite part is when I start to see them perking up and getting hopeful, and you're right at the edge of that. So exciting. Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, Jennifer, I just wanted to add, for Julie's sake, JP Morgan actually has it's like a button on our intranet that says raise your hand, and they will, if you report something that needs to be changed and you have an idea, you could submit it to this team, and they assign a project manager, and they like give you status updates and work it through fruition, and you get a t-shirt.
Wow.
It's
all that
really, yeah, it's really fun. So in the beginning, like me and my colleague Brandon, we had t-shirts. Now, you know, you have to have energy to want to take time out of your day to submit that. But if you create a buzz and it's like fun, it's really kind of interesting.
I love it. That's great. I heard some other program where the expectation was that people, it was in a big company, I think it was a big bank, the expectation was that people make at least 3 recommendations per year or something like that. And if you didn't get your 3 stars for the year, like if you did get them, you got something. I don't know if it was a t-shirt or a raise or whatever, but kind of that's a great way to incentivize what you're talking about. And making that expectation is we are all looking for ways to continually improve. We're not an organization that feels stuck. It's the obligation of everyone who works here to help us get better. So if something's wrong, you need to speak up, and then that can trickle down from the leaders to the managers to the staff, and then it trickles back up. And certainly when you see staff recommend a change or bring stuff up and then see that change, have them empowered to make the change, and then highlight the heck out of it in front of everyone. Oh, Bob put this together, and oh my gosh, look at what happened. Bob, tell us what happened. Tell us what you did. And everyone's, hesitant and like, isn't this great? And then other people are like, well, I have an idea. Yes, great. Keep it going. You got the wave going. It's perfect. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. One more suggestion, then we'll move on. What is it that you'd like to see different, and how can you do that?
I can share. I work for the YMCA here in Chattanooga, and we have a lot of change at the higher levels happening, people retiring and going to different positions. And so it's a great opportunity for change. We're working on a strategic plan and things. And I kind of always am in the mind of thinking of how can we improve things. And so this is like right in the niche of something I'm very excited about. And part of that I was talking in our breakout session about was about streamlining some of our like data reporting and analysis. And that would really help me in my job as I work in development and philanthropy. And so sometimes access to report numbers and children and, every different impact numbers that we have could be done in a much better way. If we were a business, it would be unacceptable the way that like they report numbers and stuff. But since we're a nonprofit, it's somehow seen as okay. And so as we get a new CFO, Stephanie just suggested that I meet with them and offer that as a way to make change as they are coming in to the organization, and just sharing that feedback with them, since they will be trying to learn about how we operate and offer information as well. So that's kind of what I plan on doing is, when I meet with them and let them know about what we do in the development department, I could just offer that as a piece of something that I really want to be involved with, helping administer and come up with ways to do that better.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. It reminds me, one of my clients had a lot of challenges with data management, and so it was a university, and I worked with the people who were tracking the data, but the faculty who also needed to see the data had no access to the data at all. This happens a lot where some people see it and other people don't, but everyone needs to see it. So we ended up my data people worked with the IT people to create something that looked like kind of like online banking, so that everybody, my data people and the faculty, could go in and look at each of their projects, and it would have all the things that they need about their financial data. And this was huge. This was like a 2-year project. But I put one of our aspiring managers, someone with a lot of talent and who had just never been given the opportunity to lead, in charge of that project. And I mentored her through it and coached her through it. And then I got to know the people on the IT side as well. And then we would have faculty groups to get stakeholder feedback. Like, there are ways you can start things that just become huge. So we ended up, that project ended up putting my team on the map for the first one of these dashboards for the university. And then the more people heard about it, when we would involve finance, I was in research, when we would involve finance and we would involve travel and we would involve these other people, they would say, I want a dashboard. So then IT got really excited around doing more dashboards. And then it just spread all over. We were just a tiny part of it. We were just the ones who said, sure, we'll be the guinea pigs. We'll go first, not a problem. And it just had so much good fallout from it. The manager is so confident, doing amazing stuff. The faculty felt heard. The finance group is, oh, thank God, faculty will stop calling me and asking these questions. The IT group felt great. It's amazing. So when each of you start your change project to make something better, you have no idea how many people you're going to be impacting in a positive way. Not just the 3 people who are really frustrated by this process, but it can go so far and in such an amazing way. It's so exciting. That's why I love doing this change management. I love working with people on it. Thank you all for sharing. Really appreciate that. We have a few minutes here at the end for any last questions. And this can be questions about anything in the presentation, comments or ideas around other ways to make change, anything you're stuck on, anything else you'd like to share. Want to make this really interactive because you all are amazing, powerful leaders, and you have so much to share with each other as well.
I do have a question. So depending on, each organization has their own level of strictness about org charts and how ideas are supposed to flow. If I'm in a more strict one and I might have a roadblock 1 or 2 levels up from me, how much leeway do you encourage to go around that?
Great question. Yeah. To me, it depends on the nature of the intervention. So if you're trying to change a financial software system, you're not going to be able to do that without support from the top levels, from the IT person and the finance person and so on. So if you're running into barriers there and they don't want to change it, that's not likely to happen. Culture change, on the other hand, that one you have a lot more leeway with. So it may be that you think you want to put a mentoring program in place and your boss says, okay, I don't care. And the boss's boss says, nah, we don't have the time and energy for that. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't mean you can't mentor people. And doesn't mean you can't change the culture to a culture of mentoring, even though there's not an official program. And so I think as you can make things happen, even though there's not an official program. Now, obviously, if it's a strict organization and they say, we don't want you to do this, then that's a little more stuck. But many times culture change can start in your own small group. And then you start mentioning it, your mantra, this is our way now, this is what we do. And then highlight what's happening in your group to other groups, just kind of casually. And then it starts spreading really quickly. I mean, it's slow and then all of a sudden it takes off is usually how it happens. Does that help? Yeah, okay, good. Other questions, other thoughts, anything you're stuck with about how to make change?
Hey, Jennifer, I'll just add, I think it was Heather that was speaking. It was always a mistake when I chose not to go around my direct manager to the person above him or her. It's always a mistake. So if you feel like you have something to say, but you don't feel support from directly above you, go to the next person. Like, don't feel scared to do that. If you're not in an organization that has an open door policy and is okay with you talking to all levels of senior management, then you should find a new organization. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Everybody's hiring, so you'll get support somewhere.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I think there are a lot of challenges in that. I love that approach, and I definitely do that as well. But there's sometimes when I've chosen to go around, and others when I haven't. So it sometimes there's an official open door policy, but unofficially, that's viewed as really not appropriate. There's also gender differences in this, where when men do that, it's viewed as they're go-getters, and when women do that, they're viewed as disloyal. So it can be, not always, but I hear you, and I especially admire the persistence and the innovation and the creativity and finding a way to get things done. And I agree, if your organization is not letting you, is not one where you can be innovative and creative, then yeah, maybe another organization is a better fit, or there might be a place where your ideas are appreciated. Absolutely. And yes, everybody is hiring right now. Everybody. Great. Other thoughts, other comments? All right. Well, we have a final question for you. I have my screen up there with my contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love, I'm sure you can tell, love talking about this stuff. This is what I do. I love helping organizations make change and empower their staff and empower their patients or students or clients, customers. whatever that is. And I know I'm going to hand it back to our host right now. And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you. Thanks for taking part. Thanks for sharing with your colleagues all of your great ideas. And I know that you're going to do great stuff in making positive change in your organizations that will go way beyond your wildest dreams. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer. We're so
Thank you,
honored to have you
Jennifer.
speak for us today. You're coming all the way from New York too, so I love that we can pipe you in and speak to our membership. Thank you, Martha, for making that connection. I really enjoyed hearing from all of you guys today too, on how you plan to make a change in your respective fields. So as always, we'd love to hear your feedback. I put the link in the chat just so we can know how to improve our programming in the future. We'd love to just hear from you. It just takes a couple minutes. Thank you for taking your time to join us today. We do have another one coming up on November 16th on adapting courageously. So mark your calendars for that. And if you missed anything, we'll record it and send out that link to you guys here shortly. So just wish everyone a very wonderful day and thank you for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sharia.
Bye.
Almost. Just wanted to check in. Did you have any questions for me or comments or feedback for me?
No, we're good. I am just so appreciative of that. That was so interactive. That's exactly what we're wanting to see. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
I plan on using that format, hopefully moving forward, just to really engage them in conversation, because we do find that it's difficult just to pose a question while you're talking about something, knowing that you want to move on to the next topic, sort of
right.
thing. So
Yeah.
that was wonderful. Thank you
Great.
so
I'm so
much.
glad. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate the opportunity. Really great to meet people, and let me know if I can be of assistance in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll extend your contact information out to everyone and make sure that maybe you can get some connections that way too. So
Sounds great. Thanks so
Thank
much. Really
you.
appreciate it. Take care.